Welcome students. In this lecture, we are going to study about thyroid hormones. Thyroid hormones, they are part of endocrine system of unit 4 of subject Human Anatomy and Physiology 2. Subject code is BP 201T. In the previous lectures of this unit, we have already covered introduction of endocrine system, hypothalamic and pituitary hormones. So, going further, let us start thyroid hormones. So, thyroid gland. So, thyroid gland is a butterfly shaped gland. Thyroid gland is a butterfly shaped gland. It is located just inferior to larynx, that is, it is located just inferior to the our voice box, that is larynx, and anterior to trachea. So, it is in the neck region, anterior to trachea, inferior to larynx. A butterfly shaped gland is present, that is called, we call it thyroid gland. Now, what is the structure of thyroid gland? It consists of right and left lateral lobes. It consists of right and left lateral lobes, one on either side of the trachea, connected by an isthmus, and it is located, isthmus is anterior to the trachea. I will show in this diagram. So, this is thyroid gland, these are the two lobes of the thyroid gland, and this is connected through the isthmus. These are the lobes of the thyroid gland connected by the isthmus, and this is trachea. So, this isthmus is anterior to the trachea. So, and it is present inferior to our voice box. Now, this thyroid gland, now discussing about its anatomy, this thyroid gland is made up of small spherical sacs called thyroid follicles. It consists of very small bags, sacs means bags, small bags, which we call them thyroid follicles. So, it consists of number of thyroid follicles. Each follicle consists of two types of cell. Each follicle consists of two types of cell, follicular cells and parafollicular cells. Thyroid gland made up of number of thyroid follicles, and thyroid follicle consists of two types of cell, follicular cells and parafollicular cells. Mostly follicular cells, in between there are few parafollicular cells. These follicular cells, this is important, follicular cells secretes thyroid hormone, synthesize and secrete thyroid hormone. So, कौन से हार्मोन? T4 tetraiodothyronine, because it consists of 4 molecules of iodine, triiodothyronine T3, because it consists of 3 molecules of iodine. So, thyroxine and triiodothyronine T4 and T3 are thyroid hormones which are synthesized in the follicular cells of thyroid gland, follicular cells of thyroid gland. And the parafollicular cells, which are few in number, they synthesize and secrete calcitonin hormone. They synthesize and secrete calcitonin hormone, and this calcitonin hormone regulates calcium. This calcitonin hormone regulates calcium. So, T4, T3 are thyroid hormone which are also secreted from thyroid gland, but by follicular cells. Calcitonin, which is not a thyroid hormone, but it is secreted from the parafollicular cells of thyroid gland, and calcitonin is calcium regulating hormone. So, here we will discuss about thyroid hormones, that is T4 and T3, how they are synthesized, how they are regulated, what are their actions. So, this I have already told their location. So, these are the follicular cells, these are follicular cells, and follicular cells or beech mein in between there are parafollicular cells, and there is a lumen. This is lumen, which is known as colloid of follicular cells. So, here thyroid hormone they are synthesized. Now, most important in this is formation, storage and release of thyroid hormone. Formation, storage and release of the thyroid hormone. So, first we will study how thyroid hormones are synthesized. So, thyroid hormone is thyroid gland is the highly vascular glands. It is the highly vascular glands, and it stores its secretion to the maximum amount, that is in large quantity. It stores the thyroid hormones for the 100 days. It stores its secretion for the 100 days. So, thyroid hormones is the highly vascular glands, and it stores the secretion in the large quantity. Now, thyroid gland needs iodine because it contains most of the iodine of the body, because it requires iodine for the formation of thyroid hormone, because thyroxine consists of 4 molecules of iodine and T3 consists of 3 molecules of iodine. So, most of the body's iodine is required by the thyroid gland for the synthesis of thyroid hormones. So, now we will discuss the steps of formation of thyroid hormones. So, first is iodide trapping. Thyroid gland needs iodine, but from where it will get? It will get iodine in the form of iodide, in the form of iodide. Thyroid gland will take up the iodide from the blood into the cytosol of thyroid follicular cells. So, thyroid follicular cells के cytoplasm में iodine in the form of iodide will enter through the active transportation from the blood. So, this is the first step, that is iodide trapping, that is uptake of iodide from the blood into the cytosol of thyroid follicular cells. Second step, synthesis of thyroglobulin. So, thyroxine, thyroid hormone, they need tyrosine amino acid. So, TGB is a glycoprotein, thyroglobulin is a glycoprotein which is simultaneously, that is side by side, it is synthesized in the rough endoplasmic reticulum of cytoplasm of the follicular cells, and then it is released into the lumen of follicles by exocytosis. Then it is released into the lumen of the follicle by exocytosis. So, thyroglobulin. So, what is thyroglobulin? It is a glycoprotein. How does it synthesize? It is synthesized in the rough endoplasmic reticulum in the cytoplasm, rough endoplasmic reticulum of cytoplasm of follicular cell. Then it is released into the lumen of the follicles by exocytosis. Now, next step, to bind iodine with the tyrosine. Iodine cannot bind in the form of iodide. Iodine cannot bind in the form of iodide to tyrosine. So, to bind with the tyrosine, iodide undergo oxidation. So, two iodide molecules undergo oxidation, and so then only after converting into iodine molecule. So, oxidation of iodide occur, and this iodine can only bind to tyrosine residue of TGB in the lumen. TGB was also synthesized and entered into the lumen. Iodide trapping had already occurred. That iodide is converted into the iodine, because only iodine can bind with the tyrosine of TGB in the lumen. Now, when iodine binds with the TGP, so there occur iodination of the tyrosine. Fourth step is the iodination of the tyrosine. So, binding of one iodine atom to tyrosine yields monoiodotyrosine, and second iodination produces diiodotyrosine, and thus they enters in the lumen, that is they form sticky material which is known as colloid. So, in colloid, iodine plus TGB, they are present together. Iodine has combined with the, has bound with the tyrosine molecule of TGB, and thus it has yielded T1, that is monoiodotyrosine, and T2, that is diiodotyrosine, and it forms the colloid. It forms the colloid in the lumen. This iodination of tyrosine occur in lumen. So, this is more clear with the help of this diagram. So, in this, so we have seen this is blood capillary, this is blood. So, thyroid hormone, in the blood iodide is present, in the blood iodide is present. This iodide enters inside the cytoplasm of the thyroid follicular. ये क्या है? What is this? Thyroid follicular cell. This is enlarged view. So, this is thyroid follicular cells. So, first step is iodide trapping. So, iodide enters from the blood into the cytosol of thyroid follicles. So, this is the trapping, that is active uptake of iodide. So, simultaneously oxidation of the iodide occur. Oxidation of the iodide occur, that is 2 iodide molecule converts into the iodine. So, oxidation of the iodide occur inside this cytosol, and then this iodine enters inside the follicles, enters inside the lumen of the follicles, and simultaneously TGB, thyroglobulin, simultaneously TGB is synthesized and discharged into the lumen. This also enters into the lumen. TGB, second step was the formation of TGB. TGB was synthesized by the RER, rough endoplasmic reticulum, in the cytosol, and then this TGB is also released into the lumen. So, TGB has reached to the lumen, iodine has reached to the lumen. Now, both are present in the lumen. Now, next step क्या था? So, next step is the iodination of the tyrosine molecule of TGB. So, this iodine will enter the follicle lumen where it is attached to the tyrosine. So, this is iodine, and this is, and these are the TGB. So, TGB का iodination हो रहा है यहाँ पे. So, it forms the DIT when two molecules of iodine binds with the tyrosine, then it forms the DIT. When one molecule binds with the, then it forms the monoiodotyrosine. So, iodine enters the follicle lumen where it is attached to the tyrosine in colloid, forming DIT and MIT. So, this is colloid that is present in the lumen. This is the lumen and this is the thyroid follicular cytoplasm. From the cytoplasm it enters into the lumen, both TGB and iodine, and there iodine binds with the tyrosine of TGB, forms 2 मॉलिक्यूल बाइंड करेंगे तो DIT बनेगा, 1 मॉलिक्यूल बाइंड करेगा तो मोनोआयोडो टायरोसिन बनेगा. सो so this is formation of DIT and MIT. अब next step is iodinated tyrosine. Now 2 molecules of tyrosine 2T2 will form 4 molecules of 1 molecule of T4. 2 molecules of T2 will form 1 molecule of T4, that is thyroxine, and 1 T2 plus 1 T1, that is monoiodotyrosine and diiodotyrosine, they will form T3, that is triiodothyronine. So, iodinated tyrosines are linked together to form T3 and T4. Now, this T3 and T4 thyroglobulin collide, this by the pinocytosis it will enter inside again into the cytoplasm, and there it will combine with the lysosomes, and the lysosome degradation of the thyroglobulin will occur and it will T3 and T4 will be released. So, lysosomal enzyme will cleave the T4 and T3 from thyroglobulin collide and hormones will diffuse, because thyroid hormones are lipid soluble hormones. So, they will cross the follicular cell and they will again enter back to the circulation. They will again enter back to the blood, so that they can go, so that they can reach to the target site and they produce their action. So, these are the various steps. So, in the first step was iodide trapping, that is iodine are actively taken up by the from the blood into the cytosol of thyroid follicular cell, then synthesis of thyroglobulin by the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and then these thyroglobulin binds with the iodine. For that iodide undergo oxidation. So, oxidation, after oxidation these iodine binds with the tyrosine. So, iodination of the tyrosine occur and it will form monoiodotyrosine and diiodotyrosine T1 and T2. So, next step is coupling of T1 and T2. 2 diiodotyrosine will form 1 tetraiodothyroxine, tetraiodotyrosine यानी that is thyroxine, and 1 diiodotyrosine and 1 monoiodotyrosine will form triiodothyronine. So, this is thyroxine and this is triiodothyronine. Both are thyroid hormones. So, 2T2 molecule diiodotyrosine, this is diiodotyrosine and monoiodotyrosine will form T3 triiodothyronine. So, after pinocytosis, droplets of colloids re-enter the follicular cell and there they combine with the lysosomes. Lysosomes break down TGB and releases molecule of T3 and T4. Now, how secretion of the thyroid hormone, next step. So, these thyroid hormones are secreted into the blood by simple diffusion, because thyroid hormones are lipid soluble hormones. They can easily cross the cell membrane. So, they can easily cross the follicular cell and enter inside the circulation into the blood, and there in the blood they need transporter protein. In the blood they need transporter protein, that is thyroxine binding globulin. They need thyroxine binding globulin transporter protein, which is the carrier protein for the thyroid hormone, which carries it to the target site, and from the target site it is released into the blood, and from the target cell it acts on the target cell and produces its action. In this diagram we have seen that this binds with the carrier protein and goes to the target site, and T3 and T4 both are lipid soluble. T4, though T4 is secreted in greater quantity, in the larger quantity than T3, but T3 is more potent. T3 is more potent. Most of the T4 is converted to the T3, and then only it binds, T3 binds with the receptor to produce their action. So, T4 is converted into T3, T3 binds with the receptor and produces action of thyroid hormones. And as I told you, thyroid hormone are lipid soluble hormones. So, receptors of thyroid hormones are present inside the nucleus. They are nuclear receptors inside the cell, they are nuclear receptors because they are the lipid soluble. So, T3 is more potent and T3 binds with the receptors to produce their action. So, these were the synthesis. Next is the action of the thyroid hormone. It increases basal metabolic rate. Thyroid hormone is involved in the metabolism, basically carbohydrate metabolism, lipid metabolism, protein metabolism. It regulates BMR, basal metabolic rate. It regulates BMR, basal metabolic rate. It also stimulates the lipolysis and causes the secretion of the cholesterol. So, it reduces blood cholesterol level. It increases the use of glucose and fatty acid for the ATP production. So, that is why it has calorigenic effect. It regulates body temperature, it increases the body temperature. In the absence of thyroid hormone, we will shiver, we will feel more cold if we have less of thyroid hormone. It also stimulates the synthesis of sodium potassium ATPase channel on the cell surfaces, which causes the inflow of sodium, outflow of sodium and inflow of the potassium. It enhances action of the catecholamines and stimulates the protein synthesis. So, these were the actions of thyroid hormone. In one important action, it regulates the growth of the nervous tissue and bones. In the absence of thyroid hormone, in the children there will be the child will be mentally retarded and with stunted growth. Physical and mental growth will get affected in the absence of thyroid hormone. So, basically two important functions of thyroid hormone, one is metabolism, second is the growth and development of the body, of the nervous tissue and the bones. So, how their secretion is regulated? Whenever there is low blood level of the thyroid hormones, whenever there is low metabolism, it will stimulate the release of TRH, thyroid releasing hormone from the hypothalamus, and this TRH will be carried by the hypophyseal portal vein to the thyroid to the anterior pituitary, and this will stimulate the release of TSH from the anterior pituitary gland. This TSH through the blood will go to the thyroid gland, will enter the thyroid gland, and this TSH will stimulate the thyroid follicular cells to synthesize T3 and T4. This TSH will stimulate the thyroid follicle cell to synthesize T3 and T4, that is thyroid hormone, and then T3 and T4 are released into the blood by the follicular cells, and as soon as level of T3 and T4 rises, it will inhibit the release of TRH from the hypothalamus and inhibit the release of TSH from the anterior pituitary by negative feedback mechanism. So, this is regulation of thyroid hormone, that is TRH from the hypothalamus is released whenever there is low metabolism, low level of T3. TRH will stimulate the synthesis of TSH and release of the TSH from anterior pituitary. This TSH through the blood will go to the thyroid gland and will stimulate the secretion of thyroid hormones T3 and T4 from the thyroid gland, and as soon as T3 T4 level rises in the blood, it will inhibit the release of TRH and TSH from the hypothalamus and anterior pituitary respectively. So, thus it controls the secretion of thyroid hormone by negative feedback mechanism. These are the few factors that increases the secretion of thyroid hormone: increased ATP demand, cold environment, hypoglycemia, high altitude and pregnancy. They increases the secretion of thyroid hormones. So, what occur in the deficiency of the thyroid, what occur in the hypothyroidism, what occur in the hyperthyroidism, that we will discuss in our next lecture. So, these were the references for the further reading, and in this lecture we have mainly covered the synthesis, action, regulation of thyroid hormones, which are very important hormones for the metabolism, for the growth of the nervous and the nervous system and for the bones. Thank you.